So welcome to ESSEC. For many of you, it is probably the first time that you are coming here. So this is the campus where we have been for the last 5 years. Before that, we have been in the National Library on City Hall, but we are building this beautiful campus here. So here on the campus, you will have students for various programs. So you will have bachelor programs, so they can be quite young for the first year. And we can have people who are coming for the executive MBA, who are senior managers. So we can have a nice mix. So they are going here on the cafeteria, and all of them are mixing, so it's nice to see people of all ages eating together. Concerning today, we will make a presentation about one topic, which is always a very hot topic, which is about geopolitics and business. So this is just to give you a glimpse how we are working at the ESSEC Business School. It is not intended to be a full course. So since we have people who are attending physically this presentation, don't feel free to interrupt or to have a conversation. When we talk about geopolitics, it is very much a two-way conversation because we have people sitting in the room coming from various origins, and they have various experiences, so they can have a very valuable input when we are teaching. On even I have situations where people are sitting side by side for 1 year or 2 years, and suddenly they discover each other during this kind of class, because this is how we are going to talk about sometimes sensitive topics, and they just say, you feel this? Yeah. So they're just discovering this kind of things. So for the geopolitics, I will go back to my presentation, and after that we will have maybe a quick presentation about ESSEC. I presume that you don't know about ESSEC. Who knows something about ESSEC? What do you know about ESSEC? Well, it's a French school. Good. So this is a French school, but this is an acronym, you know? So many people are just wondering, what does it mean? So in a full French way, it means École supérieure des sciences économiques et commerciales. But if you ask any persons who are sitting here, that is from the staff, I'm not so sure that they can repeat in a good French what ESSEC means. Rodel, do you know what it means? No. So it is rather complicated, but we exist for more than 100 years, founded in 1907. Since I'm an old professor here, they told me I'm in the first generation. I said, no, I joined the school later on, so it was a very established school at that time. So concerning the topic that we have today, I am teaching 2 topics within this curriculum. Usually my topic is the first one, which is geopolitics, and I have another topic practically at the end. So in that case, I can see how the participants evolve from the first week they are coming here to the last week when they are finishing the courses there. So concerning geopolitics, in fact, we can have 2 main questions. So the first question, because the starting point is geopolitics and business. This is not an institute of political science. This is a business school. So we have to see what is the impact that we have between geopolitics and business, rather than to talk only about international relations or something like this. So in order to make the connection between geopolitics and business, here you have 2 main questions. The first one is a permanent one, because we can have governments on one side and we have private companies on the other side. It is assumed that governments represent public good, or they represent public interest, especially in a democracy where people are elected in order to represent the public interest. The private company, the term private, means that they are looking for private interest. So usually the private interest will be expressed in dividends, in profits for the shareholders. So this was the usual, let's say, division of work, or the division of power between governments on one side and companies on the other side. Over the time, there was a let's say, a narrowing of this aspect. For instance, the public good, meaning the governments, were closely looking at how private companies operate. So, because what they wanted is to have the efficiency in the government management. So this is why they are looking at how the private companies operate, and maybe they can borrow some of the methods which are coming from the private side. For instance, in the private side, you will very often have the KPIs, which are given to you as managers. So in the governments, they will try to do the same thing. So they will try to measure what is the efficiency of the public servants through the KPIs. So they are looking at what is happening in the private sector, and they want to adapt it in the public sector. On the other side, the private sector has realized that it doesn't work in a closed environment. It is part of the society. So this is why you have the emergence of the corporate social responsibility and the concept of the stakeholder, and not only the concept of the shareholder. So it means that over the time, when we are looking at the situation now in 2020, the opposition existing between the private sector and the public sector is not as strong as it used to be. On top of this, you may have people who are ruling countries representing the public sector, and they are coming from the private sector. So if you are looking at the United States, the President Donald Trump is coming from the private sector. If you are looking at France, the French president also used to work for some time in a private sector. So it means that we have people who are ruling countries who know what is the private sector, and maybe they will be tempted also to implement some of the methods that they have acquired in the private sector, and they will apply it in the public one. So all this to say that in the past we used to have a clear separation between private and public. Today it becomes quite blurry. So this is why we try to negotiate between them. So the question, who rules the world, governments or companies? This is a question which was permanent one, because you may have companies that are big enough in order to say we are more important than countries. So we'll try to see this later on. This is a permanent thing. The conjunctural thing, which is something which is happening today, is to look at what is the biggest geopolitical issue today. And this can vary from one year to the other, or from one decade to the other. So we'll see what is today considered to be the biggest geopolitical issue. So we start with the first one, and after that we'll move to the second one. So concerning corporations and states, we will first try to answer the question, can corporations oppose the states? What does it mean? If the government is asking something to a private company, will the private company obey or not? That's a very interesting question. And we had this in all kinds of situations. So it can be in a military environment, it can be in a civil environment, it can be in NGOs, etc. Will these institutions or will these corporations obey to an injunction which is coming from the state? And we can have several examples, so we just look at one of them. This is a dispute between the United States, or that is one agency in the United States, which is the FBI, and Apple. As you know, in the past we used to have disputes, but the most recent one is when a cadet in the United States coming from Saudi Arabia opened fire to his classmates. And it was a few months back. And the question was that the FBI wanted to recover data from the smartphone used by this cadet in order to find out maybe there are some people who are helping him, or maybe there are some people who would like to do the same thing, etc. So they are asking Apple to cooperate. And they are telling them, look, can you open the smartphone and give us the list of contacts and the messages which have been exchanged by this person? What was the answer? Apple was saying no. So now we have a very curious situation where the government, through an agency, is asking the cooperation of a private company to participate in an investigation considered to be national security, and the private company says no. So we can discuss about is it right, is it wrong, etc. But it is showing how one private company can say no to a government. So after that, President Trump went mad. So he likes to tweet, you know. So it is interesting to see his tweet here. We are helping Apple all the time on trade and so many other issues, and yet they refuse to unlock phones used by killers, drug dealers, and other violent elements. They will have to step up to the plate and help our great country now. Make America great again. I don't see what does it have to do with this, but never mind. So he is always finishing with this kind of sentence. But it means that a private company can refuse. Of course, we can defend Apple by saying they want to respect privacy, etc. But on the other side, the public sector can say, no, you must cooperate, and so on and so on. So it means, but sometimes a private corporation can say, I don't want to cooperate. I am refusing to cooperate with the government. These companies are sometimes very big companies. So how can we assess how big are these companies? We can have two valuations. The first one is the market value of the company, and the second one is the turnover that this company is making. So the market value of the company is like a virtual value, because this is not the money that they have. This is the amount of money. If someone is buying the company, they have to pay this amount of money in order to get it. So we have very few companies which have crossed the limit of $1 trillion. And Google was one of them recently. So in this very selective club, we have 4 companies. Alphabet is the parent company of Google. You have Microsoft, you have Apple, and you have Amazon. So they are all in the threshold of $1 trillion. So this is not the only company which are crossing it. In fact, the biggest company in the world is not this one. Which one is the biggest in terms of value? Try to imagine. It's not coming from here. It's coming from the Middle East. Yes, exactly. This is why we have the slides coming up. So it will be Saudi Aramco. Saudi Aramco is valued at about $2 trillion. So $2 trillion, it is practically the double of any big valuation that we have in the United States. However, since this company is not considered to be high-tech, it is not present in all your computers, etc., so we rarely refer to this company, but it is considered to be the highest valued company today. However, this is only the value of the company. This is not the turnover. When it comes to the turnover, I will compare 2 things. The first one is the total GDP of one country, and on the other side is the turnover of the company, in order to see how do they compare. Of course, we are comparing apples and oranges because there are 2 different indicators, but we don't have anything better in order to compare companies on one side and countries on the other side. So we look at 2 slides. The first one is looking at the first 50 entities, mixing countries, that is states and companies, and the second slide for the second 50, also mixing companies and states. So this is the result that we have concerning the first 50. The company number 1 will be Walmart. So Walmart from the United States is making about $500 billion per year. The company number 2 will be State Grid. This is the electricity company from China. The third one is Sinopec, fourth one CNPC, both oil companies from China, Shell from the Netherlands, ExxonMobil from the United States. As you can see, there are no tech companies in the first 50. The first tech companies will appear later on because they don't make so much turnover. They have great value, but they don't have so much turnover. So here we have the American, the Chinese, and one exception, Shell, but Shell is considered to be Netherlands, but it is a multinational company. So this is the first 50. If we look at the first 50, it will be hard for one of these companies to, let's say, fight with one of the states which are given on the left side, because the states are considered to be more important. Now let's look at the second 50. Which color dominates in the second 50? The red color is for the corporations, and the black color is for the states. So which color dominates? Yes. So who says the black one? Maybe we have problems. So it is the red one dominating, so it means that corporations are more important. We just had a delegation yesterday from Morocco. And this delegation was coming from a very big entity from Morocco, which is the Caisse de Dépôt. So they were present here, and I was teaching to them yesterday. But the total GDP of Morocco is $129 billion. While if we go back to Walmart, it will be $500 billion. So it is more than double the GDP of Morocco. What is the conclusion? If Walmart, let's say the CEO of Walmart is going to Kuwait or is going, let's say, to Hungary, who is the person that he is going to meet? What do you think? It will be only the head of state. He will not meet anyone else, because he will consider that he represents 2 times or 3 times the GDP of this country, so why would he meet someone else? This is also why in some companies you may have leaders who will develop some kind of megalomaniac approach, because they believe that they are so important, no one can go against them, so they have a sense that they are superior to everything. However, what happens, and this is what Carlos Ghosn has learned very painfully, is that it doesn't work all the time. So it means that when we compare the corporations to the states, of course the corporations here are more important, but after that we can see if it is really the case or not. So the corporations will try to exert their power. And there are 2 ways how you can exert your power, because the states have a monopoly. They have a monopoly on currency issues, on monetary policy, and they have a monopoly on coercive power, which is the police and the army. So if one corporation wants to compete with the state, in that case, this corporation has to destroy the monopoly on monetary policy and the monopoly on the coercive power. So the 2 next questions that we have is, can a corporation have its own currency,